Entrepreneurial Edge is brought to you by Business Banking from FNB, because small ideas can lead to big business. FNB, how can we help you?
We spoke about talent just before the break. You started with 14 staff members.
Yes.
It moved on to 50 after year one, and it's almost 100 after year two. Some
92
exciting
right now.
there we go. Some exciting developments in that.
Yes. I've always had one quote on my wall, which is by some chap called Jerry Welsh. I'm not really sure who he is or what other amazing things he's come up with, but the quote I actually saw in one of the agencies I worked at, which is, "The people with the best people win," which I love, and that is it's an indelible truth. So we are open to amazing talent, and we try to make a plan for amazing talent. You know, there's that famous line of, you know, build it and they'll come. And my adage has always been, build it and I will fetch them. So if we do get amazing talent on board in fresh and interesting areas, then we'll go and fetch that business where we can benefit them in their growth ambitions. So in terms of expansion, I see us really having just finished, you know, the prologue of our story and going into chapter 1. So this is by no means, you know, 100 people. We plan to grow ourselves into a very sizable company ultimately.
And a sizable company can take on a sizable amount of clients.
Yes.
Speaking of clients,
yes,
the biggest challenge when it comes to advertising is matching the vision of the client with what the agency thinks is right. How do you find that middle ground?
Okay. So I used to work for an amazing man back in the day called Bob Rightford. And Bob had an adage of first-class business in a first-class way. And that has always stayed with me. And I think what you mean by first-class business is companies that you can help, that have a willingness to want to go the journey, that are sound in terms of integrity, in terms of purpose, and in terms of product. Nice Freudian slip there. So we look at that. And obviously it is nice to have famous big blue chip brands, but it's also great to have challenger brands that want to, you know, challenge the status quo and grow themselves into the market leaders, or at least pose a significant threat to the major players. So it's really about identifying those clients, or those clients identifying you, and then having a congruency of value system. So to do business in an honorable way. And then I think that you've got a good fit. I think beyond any kind of supplier relationship, partner relationship, however you want to, in certain instances we are partners, in other instances we are suppliers, comfortable with either. But it's a very intense relationship. So you might see your accountant twice a year, you might see your lawyer once a year, heaven forbid, you know, your architect once when you build a house. Yeah. Here it's a very intense relationship. You see your client every day, you speak to them all the time. So there has to be good chemistry, and at the center of everything is trust. Without trust you can't do anything. You can achieve nothing, but with great trust you can achieve the extraordinary.
Have you ever walked away from a client?
Yes, I have. I've walked away from a client twice actually in my career. Both times, funnily enough, not because the product or the offering of that organization was incongruent, but both times because I didn't feel that our people were being treated in a respectful way. And I think that when you lead an organization and you're entrusted with people's careers, it's a very hard thing to watch people be treated badly. So I kind of don't allow that on my watch. I like to work with people that are honorable, are decent. Tough is fine. But when you feel or you see a client take away a sense of self of the individuals, then it becomes a bit uncomfortable. So I've had the hard conversation to say, let's look at these behaviors. How do we unpack them? How do we fix them? And on 2 occasions, I don't think the client felt that, you know, it was for the supplier to discuss their behavior with them. So we mutually ended it.
But for those clients,
it's never easy.
I can understand it, but for those client relationships who do work, what are some of the highlights, you know, from your from all the years you've been in the industry, what are some of the campaigns that stand out for you?
So I think that if I look back at the 20-odd years, 22 years I've been in this industry, having terminated 2 relationships is a remarkably low hit rate, I think. Because I do believe that we build outstanding long-term relationships with clients. I think the longest relationship I've had in this industry is personally is with Volkswagen and Audi, which was from the age of 25 to 41, where, you know, our kind of led their business directly.
That's a solid track record.
for a long, long time. And I've worked on other, amazing brands for many, many years. And in our company here, I think we've got outstanding relationships with the clients that we work across. We handle Heineken for Brand House, outstanding company. Do a lot of work with AVR across the entire and Snackworks business. We work very closely with the Nedbank Group on a number of key strategic objectives. We work with Naspers on MWeb, and we handle DSTV media sales for them.
So all clients
Samsung.
you've matched the vision with the intention with.
That's right. And absolutely. We are there to grow their business, and that's why they should come to us. And then to empower us to co-create, I guess, business solutions and strategies together. So it's not about briefing us and us running off and doing stuff. It is a very kind of mutually intense and committed relationship in terms of driving outcomes for their business. And hopefully, as a result of that, we get something. I mean, my adage in life is you get because of what you give, not because of what you take. So I think that when you give generously to your clients to grow in their business, when you put integrity at the center of it and the results are there, all else takes care of itself.
Speaking of giving and empowering, but spinning the concept, your company has a very good BE rating.
Yes.
From a management's perspective, from a management shareholder's perspective, in a country where we have a lot of legacy issues, how important is that part of giving back to M&C Saatchi Abel? Okay,
it's enormously important to me. When I was asked to open the company, M&C Saatchi PLC were going to own 50.1% of the company in South Africa, and I had the other 49.9% to allocate. I immediately took 26% of that equity and ring-fenced it for black economic empowerment. So the black shareholding of my company will always be greater than the white shareholding of the company, and yet the majority of my partners are white. Okay, so it's an interesting thing. Why did I do it? Well, I want to only allocate that equity to individuals that work inside our company and can meaningfully contribute to our company, and to use our company as a meaningful way of uplifting amazing black talent in this market. So we actively go out and look for great people that we can either attract to our company from other organizations, or that can grow up within our organizations and get equity. So all of the equity that is unallocated to individuals sits 100% in a black employee share ownership program, and the proceeds of that actually go towards black charitable endeavors. So I haven't done any of those usual suspect deals where I've gone and hunted captains of industry to put on my board to give them equity to win business, because I don't think that that is something I'm comfortable with. I'd rather use that equity to empower, grow, nurture talent, and for those people to help us grow our organization the right way.
Mike, let's step back a little bit. You were previously the CEO of M&C Saatchi Group in Australia, as we mentioned, also the COO of Ogilvy South Africa.
Yes.
But where did your advertising journey start back in the day?
Well, funnily enough, my real journey started after I left the AAA School of Advertising, and before I was eventually seconded into the army in those days, which was preferable to go to the army versus going to jail.
Yes.
Neither pleasant. I started an advertising agency, a little one, advertising with Contravision on the back windows of black taxis, where nobody else was doing it in those days. It was the first, because I'd seen this Contravision, and they were usually kind of surfer pics and waves and Malibu and all of that. And I thought, well, why not put ads there? And then I was conscripted, and other companies took that space over that period of time. But the first agency I worked with was a very, very hot agency. It was an offshoot of Ogilvy in those days, Breakaway, and it was called the White House DDB.
Very interesting. Now, so entrepreneurship has been in your veins, because the first company you essentially worked for, you started.
That's right.
Has that always been a passion of yours, to eventually sit down, sit back and say, this is something I've grown, and take it forward? I
think so. I've always loved to grow the companies that I've worked in or led. And if one looks at my track record, there has been ambitious and successful growth in leading those companies. And so even when one is in a corporate environment, you can't look at it and say, I'm running somebody else's company. You always have to treat that thing as if it's your own company. But what I did find when I went to run the Australia company for M&C Saatchi was Saatchi is a very entrepreneurial company. Very different to the other global networks. So when you look at us, we've remained independent. We're the largest independent agency network in the world, specifically and by design. And hopefully we'll always hang on to that independence. But we consider ourselves to be a federation of entrepreneurs. So a lot of people coming together to do the extraordinary, as opposed to reading somebody else's hymn sheet. And I think that, our entrepreneurs have always been one, are entrepreneurs born or made. There's a great quote which is, challenge is your only opportunity for growth. And I really believe that. So until you're confronted with challenge, you don't really know what you are capable of. You aren't pushed into that space of discomfort or that pebble in the shoe. So I think that a lot of entrepreneurs don't know they're entrepreneurs until they're forced into that space. And then you have to get resourceful and you have to say, okay, so what do I do from here? And then all of a sudden those ideas start percolating.
Quick 30 seconds, your advice to our viewers and the entrepreneurs out there right now watching the show.
Know what you want to stand for. Have a compelling proposition. You can't go to market with a Me Too product anymore. Products are easily replicable. So you have to have something special. You have to identify the market that you're going to take it to. Whether that market knows they need it or not has never worried Steve Jobs and many of the other people like Richard Branson. But if you take it to them in a way that is fresh, is compelling, is differentiated, is enticing and relevant, you'll be successful. But know what you want to say and have a strong opinion. And then follow through.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it, Mike. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Great pleasure. Lovely to talk to you.
Well, that's a wrap of this episode of the Entrepreneurial Edge. Make sure you tune in next week. Until then, from myself, Natasha Jacobs, it's goodbye.